Hello again. First of all, a big thank you to my subscribers. There are 533 of you. And a huge welcome to new subscribers. The Practical Animal channel is dedicated to the public understanding of the animal industry. My aim is to inform you of the occupations available within the industry across the world. I also explore industry methods, trends, and skills needed for new entrants. Join me on a round the world survey of careers with wildlife. The channel aims to give tips that may just give you the edge you need to nail your interview for that dream animal job. To meet today's guest, we go to Alaska. Matt Johnson is the Interpretation Program Manager for Katmai National Park and also its Public Information Officer, specialising in organising Fat Bear Week. He talks today about the differences between Kodiak, Grizzly and brown bears. There is a world population of 3,500 Kodiak bears, 58,000 brown bears and 60,000 grizzlies. For students of English as a foreign language, this video will be interesting because you will hear a North American and a British accent. Working with wild bears and living the wild life looks like this. Matt, what's your best bear fact, please?
I've got two bear facts for you, actually. Bears are not social animals like wolves are. Wolves tend to hang out in packs, but bears don't. Like one interesting thing about bears at Katmai especially is that they'll congregate together. They'll tolerate each other, whereas bears don't usually tolerate each other in the wild. Male bears are even a threat to females with cubs, a threat to cubs. In Katmai, they tolerate each other because there's a lot of food for them to gather at the salmon falls or at Brooks Falls. But that's not the most interesting bear fact. The most interesting fact is what I got from Yellowstone. I used to work in Yellowstone early in my career, and there was a biologist named Kerry Gunther, and he let us know that male bears tend to go into hibernation later than female bears. Females will push a bunch of leaves and soft grass together, whereas males a month later in November will come into the den or make a den for themselves and just push a bunch of sticks together. So that was really interesting to me and funny bear fact.
How did your career develop, Matt?
I've worked in 10 parks across the country, from Alaska to Florida, and it's really a love of the outdoors. As a boy, I spent a lot of time in the wilds in Canada, and it just was so beautiful to me. And right out of college, I got a job as a wilderness ranger and mist rising from the ancient forests in Alaska, and I thought, I gotta stay here. I gotta do this.
Brilliant. Matt, Fat Bear Week, what is it and what happens?
Fat Bear Week was started about 10 years ago by one of the rangers here. And what happens is we have a contest to see which bear is the fattest. And we let people vote on those bears. We take pictures early in the year, about now when they start coming into the Brooks Falls area. And we take pictures of them again in September, just to see how fat they are, and we'll let people vote on the bears. It's become so popular. 1.3 million people tuned into Fat Bear Week across the world last year, and it's due to the webcams that were placed at here in Katmai. People were able to watch the bears around the world, and they've tuned in to see the Fat Bear Weekend in October.
What are the dates in October?
Early in October, the first Tuesday in October.
Are the bears at Katmai Kodiak bears?
No, that's a label that's reserved exclusively for bears on Kodiak Island. Katmai has brown bears. Three types of bears. The brown bears themselves, the grizzlies, and also Kodiak bears. Grizzlies live inland. They tend to be smaller than brown bears, about 1.5 to 2 times smaller than brown bears. And Kodiak bears are even larger still. The Kodiaks are exclusively on Kodiak Island. It's like across an ocean strait, like from England to Ireland. For us, it's not too far across the ocean, but Kodiaks may even have an edge on the brown bears in Katmai. They are even a little bigger over there.
Wow, so the brown bears of Katmai are actually bigger than grizzlies.
Yes, about 1.5 times bigger than the bears than grizzlies. Grizzlies don't have as good a diet as brown bears do in Katmai. Brown bears have all that salmon and ready access to the food that grizzlies don't have.
Matt, what jobs are there with bears in Alaska?
There's a variety of jobs with the National Park Service, the agency that I work for, and most government agencies. A lot of Alaska is public land, government land. So there are a lot of jobs in the resource management field for biologists. Also, there are jobs in interpretation. That's my field. That's in the visitor centers. In the we put together a website for people. We issue media releases and tell stories. Like here, there's a visitor protection unit, the law enforcement unit that deals with troublemakers, and also facilities workers that handle the infrastructure and transportation for all the workers back and forth. Around the world, I wish that I would have taken advantage of a job in another country. There are a lot of different species of bears around the world, and you can start out there by learning, and you can also learn another language while you're doing your job out there. That seems fascinating to me.
Which country would you go to, and what species of bear would you work with?
I go to Thailand, I think, and learn about the sun bear. I think they've got sun bears there.
How would you describe brown bear conservation in Katmai today?
The mission of the National Park Service is to conserve the scenery and the natural and historic objects and the wildlife they're in, and provide for the enjoyment of the same in such manner and such means as to leave them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. And our approach, the approach of this agency, is a ecosystem type approach. It's exemplified well by a public land manager named Aldo Leopold. He thought of the idea of an ecosystem being like an engine. You go underneath the hood, start throwing out parts, however big or small they are, and you'll find that the engine doesn't run so well anymore. And that's what we do with the park. Service is we are taking ecosystem type approach. We keep all the parts, we try to keep everything operating and just keeping it together for people to enjoy.
Matt, what questions regarding brown bear conservation would you like to see answered by the close of the 21st century?
There was a grizzly bear scientist named Craig Severn that did some studies in the northern mountains of the United States where brown bears still exist. And he said that the future of bears depends on the hearts and minds of the people that live with the bears. And that's something that's really interesting to me. Our relationship with bears really depends on that, on what we think about them. They depend on us, we depend on them. It's you'll see that everywhere in writings about bears and nature. The scientist E.O. Wilson said that biodiversity is the key to the maintenance of the world as we know it. It's the assembly of life that's taken over 1 billion years to evolve. It's eaten the storms, folded them into its genes, and created the world that's created us. It holds the world steady, and every scrap is priceless. And I love to see our relationship between bears and humans further defined. What are the links? How are we tied together? We know that we are, but let's see that.
Matt, can you describe your work?
I am the interpretation program manager for Katmai National Park and Preserve. I'm also the public information officer. So the famous nature writer Barry Lopez, at least he's very famous to me, he said that sometimes people need stories more than food to stay alive. And I think that's so true. That's what my job is like. I direct a staff here of park rangers to tell the stories to people about Katmai, about the bears, and draw people to this area and hopefully draw them to care about the wonders that are found here, including the bears.
Matt, what skills and personal qualities does a person need to do brown bear field work at Katmai?
For me, it's a love of the outdoors and biology and nature, a good heart, tolerance. Out here in Alaska, it's tolerance for a remote duty station. We're far away from many civilized things, like even restaurants. I'm sure in North Yorkshire you have some good restaurants that you go to out of habit. Here, not so much, and especially when you're stationed out in the wilderness. Katmai is the size of Yellowstone and Yosemite national parks in the United States. It's the size of those two parks combined, and it's mostly wilderness land. Hardly any roads or connections to this huge national park, and so it can get pretty remote out there. That's definitely part of the work. I mean, living in close quarters with your teammates takes a tolerance for people. You got to work well with other people.
I wonder what is recruitment like? Do jobs frequently come up? Has recruitment changed since COVID? What have you seen, Matt?
It's been interesting. The job market has been challenging lately. Believe it or not, it's relatively difficult to to hire people here. We advertise for the jobs a year in advance, but we also work through other agencies. Like I worked with people from the UK, even at Grand Canyon. When I was there, it was through a group called the Student Conservation Association. Really great group, and gathers people around the world who, especially students, that are ready and willing to help out national parks. And that's a good way to get your foot in the door. And that's what I did early on in my career. I took one of those internships, and it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Is it how easy is it for foreigners, Brits, or anybody else to go to Katmai and get a job or get an internship?
It's difficult, but it may not be as difficult as it sounds. There's something like there's a J9 visa, I think it is, and I'm always surprised by how few people contact me, contact parks. I worked in Yellowstone and other parks across the country, and very few people ask me how they could apply for jobs. And that's one thing that your students can do if they are interested in a job. Just call the job manager there and see what it's like, and learn how to apply. That's really a good way to do it.
Oh, that's really interesting. I suppose what's on a lot of people's minds is things like green cards and what have you. But yeah, I would encourage anybody to pursue that if they possibly could. Matt, what should interns wear for an interview?
Well, we're not going to be flying you out here to meet with us. That's for sure. So I think just business casual. We're not a judgmental lot. Please don't wear a suit and tie.
Matt, where do our knowledge gaps lie with brown bear conservation in Katmai?
I think one of the current projects here is to get a understanding of the patterns that brown bears are using and how that's changed recently with increased visitation because of the wet camps, because of Fat Bear Week. Our visitation at Brooks Camp, which is where the bears congregate, has more than doubled in the past 10 years. That's brought a lot of people, a lot of attention to the camp, and we're interested mainly in seeing how bears are reacting to that. And so that's what's going on right now for us. Patterns not only at Brooks Camp, but we're seeing increased visitation in other areas of the site of the park as well. Bears come in for the salmon run at Brooks Camp, which is in the center of the park. They also go to other areas, depending on the food sources, and people go there too, increasingly to follow them. So we are researching what's going on with the visitor interactions and the bear patterns of behavior, so that we can help keep people safe here.
Matt, can you suggest a research project for an undergraduate student on brown bears?
I think one interesting thing that is going on right now is indigenous connections to the natural world, to animals, to wolves, to bears. There was a recent study on wolves, how people are connected to the wolves, and I'd like to see a similar study, about bears in the park in the Alaska region, and those connections, those stories, the other patterns that cultures have in dealing with animals is very interesting to me, and very interesting to the community. And we're just seeing a new resurgence of that. in recent years.
Well, Matt, if you can tell me more about the bears of Katmai, are they easily seen throughout the year? What are the protocols that people need to follow in terms of safety?
The bears go to the food sources, and they tend to hang out and keep their own company. So one thing that we tell people, or a few things that we tell people, is travel in groups. Also, you want to stick to trails if possible. Not bear trails, but human trails. We don't have a lot of trails in Cat, so people should avoid surprising bear. You know, that's one thing that you don't want. The bear doesn't want either. So make a little noise along the trail, talk to each other, clap your hands every once in a while, just to avoid surprising a bear. Their main sense is smell, but they can hear pretty well too. So just and also here, it's a good idea to carry some bear spray when you're out in the backcountry to just in case the bears get too close, because they're used to people more at Brooks Camp, which is where a lot of people come to see them. But in the backcountry, they're not as used to people, so you can really surprise a bear, and that's one thing nobody wants to happen.
Sure. I mean, here in the UK, we don't use the expression backcountry because we've got very little of it. We have got wide open countryside, but not in the sense of the North American ecosystems. I mean, backcountry is what? Is it literally off the trail? Is it people bashing their way through vegetation? What is backcountry?
Yeah, we have very few trails, even compared to other parks in the United States. There just aren't a network of trail. We don't build trails in the backcountry except for just around a small area of Brooks Camp. But there's no trail crew like in other parks, and it's rare for people to walk around. We have wilderness rangers to patrol in the backcountry, but they go off of established trails. It's just bushwhacking. That's true throughout Alaska. There's a lot of underbrush that you have to deal with, bugs, and it takes longer to get around.
What other research programs are going on at Katmai? Are there many more to do with bears or any other aspects of the ecosystem and biodiversity?
There's a number of other studies that are going on, not only with bears, but with eagles. And also Katmai has 14 active volcanoes within the park. So there's some mercury studies that are going on in the park, and also our geologic survey department is monitoring the volcanoes here. One of the most explosive eruptions in the recent history of the Earth occurred in 1912 here, about this time over 100 years ago, or almost 100 years ago. That happened in Katmai, and covered ash. You know, people heard it about it in Juneau, and there's a valley that you can hike in here. It's the Valley of 10,000 Smokes. It's still recovering from that eruption that occurred in 1912.
Wow, that's incredible. Matt, what advice can you offer people who want to work with bears, make a career out of bears?
The one good thing that you can do is work with an agency there's a lot of groups that will place you in a internship. You don't have to be a student, but you can get the experience of working in the backcountry like I did. I got a job, an internship to work in the Tongass National Forest of Alaska. I was a wilderness ranger. I was sent out in a sea kayak and to explore some of the wilderness areas and take note of who was using it and the backcountry sites. And it was just fascinating to see whales, to see gigantic jellyfish. That's one thing that's so amazing about about nature and parks is just all the wonders of wildlife and things that constantly surprise you out here. But I got off track for you. Sorry.
No problem. No problem. Matt, is there anything you'd like to add?
This is a fascinating time to be studying wildlife, to be studying bears. There's something that's amazing to me, the stories that come out about wildlife, especially from indigenous cultures. There's one that I learned from the Tlinkits in Southeast Alaska. There's a story there of the bear princess, and it's a woman that goes out with her friends, a young woman. She goes hiking with her friends in the backcountry of Alaska, and she slips on a pile of bear droppings and falls in the mud, and her friends laugh at her. She's so angry with the bears, and she gets angry and she really has bad things to say about them in front of their friends. And now in many cultures, people turn into animals, animals turn into people, and the bears heard this girl, get mad at them. So they thought they should teach her a lesson. And what they did is one person turned into a bear. She fell in love with him, and he took her into his world where she was apart from her family, but she was in love, and she learned a lot about bears. Eventually she came back, and she passed on that knowledge of bears to her people. Just there's so many fascinating stories out there, and the more I learn about them, the more I want to know. And it's and the more you learn about their behavior too. It's not just from science, it's also from in these stories that people can learn about animals. And so I often wonder what's in your heart, what animal is in your heart that you care about, and can you tell the story to other people?
That's wonderful. I love that. Matt, you are the Public Information Officer at Katmai National Park in Alaska. Thank you very much for being on the Practical Animal Channel, Matt Johnson.
Thank you for your interest in Katmai and all the wonders here